So the first thing I did to create my layout was to crop my image and make it 8.5 inches wide so that it's a nice large photo on my layout. And I want to show you that when you go to crop an image, you can choose the grid overlay. You can see that at the bottom right corner. When you choose the grid overlay, you can set the grid so that your subject is on one of the rule of thirds lines. And that's exactly what I did here on this photo. You can see that the left vertical line intersects my daughter and her leg there. So think about that when you crop an image, to put your subject on one of those lines. And be sure to turn on that grid overlay. For this layout, I'm using a large scale photo and it's 8.5 inches wide. I don't have a large format printer, so I just go into Photoshop and crop this image to 8.5 inches, keeping the same proportions. Now I'm using a Stampin' Up! Paper collection, and it's called Bubbles and Fizz. And you can see here that the A sides have quite a lot of like kind of soda references to them, but the B sides are super usable for any kind of project that you want to create. So the colors match so perfectly with my photo. I just had to use these papers. You can see all of the different papers in this collection here. And this is called the Bubbles and Fizz Designer Series paper. So check that out from Stampin' Up! Okay, so I've already chosen the teal pattern and I've cut it so that when it is placed on the left side of my layout, it ends at the first third point of my background. So you can see here that's 4 inches. So with the rule of thirds, if you're using a 12-inch by 12-inch piece of paper, you're going to have 4-inch lines on your paper. And also it works the same way on the other direction, so 4 inches and 4 inches horizontally. So on my photo, I'm going to use all of these lines to my advantage. You can see that my daughter, who is the subject of my photo, is right there, and I'm going to place her on that first third line. And where I'm lining my daughter up on the background here also corresponds to the grid line that I showed you at the very beginning when I was cropping my photo. Now I'm also using that strong horizontal line in my photo, and I'm going to line that up along the bottom line for the rule of thirds on my layout, so right along that 8-inch point. So again, my daughter, who's the subject of the photo, is placed on the left third line, and my horizon line for my photo is placed on the bottom third line. Okay, so I want to accent this bottom third line even more by placing a really brightly colored pattern that lines up perfectly with that horizon line in my photo. So not only is this pattern paper accenting one of my thirds, it's also creating a shelf for me to place other embellishments and journaling tags on. So here I've grabbed this teal journaling tag from Ellie's Studio, and it matches with the teal paper perfectly. And there's nothing happening on this side of my photo, so I'm going to go ahead and layer that over the top of my photo there on the negative space. So I've die cut a word from this yellow pattern paper, and I'm keeping to the colors from my photo, so you can see the yellow glass art behind my daughter. So I wanted to add the title in yellow so that it really stood out. And I'm just trying to find a good spot for that to go. I don't want to take away from the lines that I've already established on my layout. And when I put my title at the top of my photo, it really seems to do that. It seems to take away from the grouping that I already have going on, and it detracts from the subject of my photo, which is my daughter. So by placing my title lower and on the pattern paper shelf that I've already established, it keeps all those elements together. It keeps the lines the main focus and directs your eye right to my photo. Okay, so I'm grabbing a stamp set from Stampin' Up, and it's called the Bubble Over, and it's a photopolymer stamp set, and it also has dies that coordinate with the stamp set to make it really easy for you to cut out those small shapes. Here's the dies here, and I love the little bubbles, the little hearts. There's all sorts of cute things. So what I've done here is I've gone ahead and stamped, and then I've used the coordinating dies. It's a circular die, and it actually looks like a bottle top, but you can't really tell that on this layout because it's out of context. It just looks like it has a really cute edge design to it. So I went with that, and it was a lot easier to use that die cut than to cut them out by hand. So what I want to do here is break up these hard lines just a bit by creating a flowing diagonal line from the bottom left to the top right of my page. And this is a technique I use a lot when I have a strong horizontal and a strong vertical line. And you can also see that this line of embellishments goes through my photo, next to my title, and then through my journaling. So you're going to get your eye moving from the bottom left to the top right, and you're going to get all of those elements in the line of sight. So before I started hearing everything down, I'm putting my clear ruler on the layout to make sure that everything is where it should be, that my lines are on the 4-inch and 8-inch marks because that's where the third lines go on your 12-inch by 12-inch paper. And I'm adding dimensional adhesive to my photo just to make that stand out a bit. And when placing this photo, I really want to make sure that my horizontal line in my photo matches up with the top of my pattern paper, horizontal line there. And then I've typed on my journaling tag. I've done that in Photoshop Elements so that it's nice and clean and I can fit a lot more journaling in that way. So I'm adding that to the right side of my photo, slightly at an angle because I want to have that sense of movement, and with my embellishment circles, the way I have them kind of flowing in that diagonal line, I want my journaling tag to reflect that kind of movement too. I don't want it to be as rigid as the lines that I have from the pattern paper or my photo. And then I'm going to place my title, or the beginning of my title anyway, my die cut, over the top of the journaling tag and the photo. So I'm going to add dimensional adhesive to my title, and I just want to let you guys know about a product that I've used for a while now. They're called mini dimensionals, and they're from Stampin' Up, and I absolutely love that these are a much smaller size. They're about half the size of the normal dimensionals, and you can fit them on so many smaller embellishments. So I'm adding those to the bottom of my die cut word and then adding adhesive to the top. So I've kind of had a revelation with my title. It was going to just say happy moments, but now I've decided I want it to be capturing happy moments. And the stamp set I'm using is from LE Studio, and it's called Title Builder. And it's a stamp that I helped to create with LE Studio. And I'm grabbing this striped pattern because what I want to do is create a banner that comes out from my journaling tag that has the word capturing on it. And that just adds a little bit of something to the title. It just gives it another element to make it more interesting. So I've grabbed a foam craft mat here and I'm stamping onto the yellow line onto the striped pattern paper just with some black ink. I find that if I stamp on a foam mat, it gives me a much better stamped image. Now I'm going to trim out the word capturing along with some of the white on the edge. I don't want this banner to be too thin. Now by just using my scissors, I'm going to cut a small slit on the halfway mark Just going to trim a little bit more off the edge here. So I'm going to cut a small slit, probably about a quarter of an inch, a third of an inch in, and then I'm going to cut from the corner to the end of that slit to create a banner shape. So there you go. Now I'm going to tuck this under my journaling tag to create the start of my title. Okay, to finish off my title, I'm grabbing the word moments from the title builder stamp from LE Studio, and I'm going to stamp the word moments in teal ink just under the word happy. And because I'm not sure if I used this stamp, this actual word before, I'm rubbing it with some eraser before I go ahead and ink it up. And to get a good image, I'm also going to put my foam mat underneath my layout here. And the color ink I'm using coordinates with the paper, and it's called Bermuda Bay by Stampin' Up. It's a really gorgeous teal. So now that I have my main page elements adhered down, I'm going to go ahead and focus on the embellishment and add my stamped circles back onto the layout in a kind of loose diagonal line. I just want them to seem like they're almost floating. So presently I only have paper on my layout and I want to get some different textures in here. So I'm grabbing these puffy star stickers because they coordinate with the star circles that I've already placed on my layout, and I'm going to add these to that loose diagonal line that I already have going. I felt like I needed another circular element to go on my diagonal line, something that was a bit different. So I found this kind of hand-drawn circle in the same stamp set that I used to create the circle stars and the yay, and I'm going to add that along this diagonal line of embellishments. I don't want it to be too dark, so I'm stamping it with a gray ink pad, also from Stampin' Up. And I'm just going to add 3 of these across the page. To the inside of the circles, I'm also going to add the reddish orange, teal, and a yellow heart. Okay, last but not least, I'm showing you these glitter and clear epoxy shapes from Stampin' Up, and they are absolutely so cool. They're really tiny, and they almost just look like little drops of water on your page. And I just want another element that's a bit different to go along my embellishment diagonal here. So I'm going to place them kind of randomly here along this diagonal line. I'm really happy with the way this layout turned out. I made use of the rule of thirds when cropping my photo and when placing it strategically on the page so that my daughter, the subject of the photo, was the focus of the page. Then I broke up those strong lines with a fun diagonal line of embellishment. Don't forget to use those magic invisible lines that break up your layouts into thirds. Thanks so much for watching, and happy creating!